So, a fun fact, the California bar exam has the lowest pass rate in the United States. Also, even with the most recent adjustments made by the California Supreme Court, the California bar has the 7th highest passing grade in the nation, which means that you've got to do better than most American law grads if you want to pass. Fun, right? Yeah, about as much fun as running bare-chested through a field of stinging nettles. You've got your work cut out for you, my friend. But here to make law grad life infinitely easier for you is attorney Shoshana Karpeles, who's the founder and head tutor of CA Bar Style, a prep and tutoring company that can help you take on the notoriously wicked California bar exam. In our interview, she explains what makes this exam unique, which is just a polite way of saying, why is it so hard? And how you can prepare better. So with that said, here's Shauna and what you need to know about the unique challenge that is the California bar exam. All right, so let's cut to the chase. What makes the California bar exam different to the other states' bar exams?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question. I can break it down very clearly to what I think is the main kind of factor that makes it different. So most states follow what's called the UBE, that's the Uniform Bar Exam. California is one of 8 states, along with states like Florida and Nevada, that does not cover the Uniform Bar Exam. So what that means is the following. There are 3 components to a bar exam typically, and this applies whether you're taking an individualized state's bar exam or you're taking an exam in all for the UBE, the uniform, in about 42 different states, 43 different states, okay? Every single state takes the same multiple choice exam. It's a 200 question exam. So when we're talking about what makes California distinctive, it's really not distinctive in terms of the multiple choice component because every single state is taking that same multiple choice test that is administered by the National Conference of Bar Examiners, otherwise known as the NCBEX. When it comes to California, the grading standard is very high, in particular to the writing component. So the essays, the 5 essays, it used to be 6 essays, and the performance test. We have 1 PT now, it's 90 minutes. It's very analogous to the Uniform Bar Exams PT, but the grading standard here is very high. So the requisite structure and presentation of the legal issues and the posture, the performance test, can be either objective or persuasive. And what it is, because we'll talk about it today a little bit, I'll just give a little overview for those maybe that are just getting started in their bar prep career or they're thinking about law school. The performance test is a closed universe, meaning you're not using memorized law. You're using the law that they give you, statutory and case law. And of course, your common knowledge of that area of law is relevant, but you have to answer a task either objectively or persuasively within 90 minutes. The task is by a mock partner. It's anything from a client letter, which can be objective or persuasive. If it's a demand form, it's more persuasive. It also can be a memorandum of points and authorities, so on and so forth. So that is actually the hardest part of the exam for most applicants, the performance test. So really California is unique in that the grading standard here, the amount of issues they want you to spot, so on and so forth, is different than in most states. And so just knowledge of law does not work. There's a lot more to it.
Right, okay. It doesn't take much hunting around online to see that California has the lowest bar exam pass rate in America. I mean, last February in 2020, it was only 26.8%. So why do law students and other applicants and repeaters have such a hard time passing the California bar?
So this is a question I probably get 20 times a week. What do I not do? What do I need to know about in order to make sure that I'm very well prepared? So I've made a list of factors. It's not an all-inclusive list, but we'll go through it. So, and I want to preface that by saying I've tutored, depending on when applicants are watching this, I've tutored, right now we're in September 2021, I've tutored over 4,000 applicants. Wow. So there's really not anything that I have not seen when it comes to, because everybody's kind of different, right, when it comes to this exam. The first thing is lack of structure. So a lot of applicants go into this and they do an independent study or they do a commercial bar review. Now, I'm not here in this interview to knock any bar review. I have respect for anyone in this game, really. And thankfully, I get more than enough applicants to be very happy and satisfied with my business. But I will say that commercial bar review just not work for a lot of applicants.
Right.
And unfortunately, there is a lot of pressure to enter into those types of review. Those types of review in the general model, without getting too thoroughly into it because it's pretty lengthy. But the general model is a lot of law. So it's a ton of law. California requires 13 subjects, give or take. Some people break it down a little bit differently. And then you go to some mild practice. That's the general model. That's a lack of structure because applicants just sit with these materials and outlines for hours. And then the requisite standard being as high as it is, especially for the written component, it's not a formula for most applicants. I'm not saying all. There are a lot of applicants that can go to commercial bar reviews and do well. But there are also, like you said in February 2020, a huge majority of applicants that do independent study or commercial bar review, and they are overwhelmed with the amount of law. And then when it comes to applying the law, they don't have a strategy because it's missing in the formula of that commercial bar reviews prep. So that's a big reason. Timing restrictions, especially we have now an online bar in California, especially because of COVID, we don't know if that's going to maintain, if that's going to remain online, but that was really hard for a lot of applicants in 2020. Feb 2020 was right at the start of COVID. So that was not an online bar review. So that was a very low passage rate. But you only have an hour to answer an essay. You have 90 minutes to answer a performance test. And that is probably the biggest time constraint. You have 200 multiple choice questions on the second day of the exam. And that is your supposed recommendation is to take each question at about 1.8 minutes, so to speak. So it's not a lot of time. There's a lot of pressure. And so timing is a major factor. There's ways to practice to make sure your timing is in a good place. But it's all kind of like a domino effect, because when you're doing that independent study and then you just go to the practice and you're missing that strategy component, where do I spend time on in regards to my issue spotting? Issue spotting, for those that are in law school or bar applicants, they know what I mean when I say issue spotting, or they should. And they're thinking, well, how much time do I spend on this? You can get wrapped up in one issue. Some essays could have up to 30 issues, an area like evidence and so on and so forth. So timing is a major factor into the prep. And I'll say as a caveat, a lot of bar reviews, especially if you're in a commercial type setting, they're not watching your timing as an applicant. They're not working with you on your timing. So it's that cookie cutter type of prep that then when you go into the test, and a lot of applicants don't take that simulated practice exam, then they're like overwhelmed because they cannot finish especially the written component within the time allotted. Memorization is a major issue for a lot of applicants. California, as of now, and they are debating this right now. So I want to say there is a blue ribbon commission that was put together by the California State Bar. And they have already had 2 commission meetings. I have watched both of them. I don't think a lot of people know about them, but if you are interested, you can go to YouTube and watch all about potential changes coming up. The California bar exam is going to change soon in the next 3-4 years. So that's something, if you're taking the bar in a while, to be looking at. And of course, when applicants follow me, I go over it because not a lot of bar tutors talking about it. Lack of strategy. So I kind of touched on this. The law is step 1, and then a lot of applicants go right to practice. So the model that I find the most beneficial is when applicants focus on the law, but not in an overwhelming way. So we want to kind of get them out of the law a little quicker, especially if they graduated from a law school in California or even within the United States, but especially those California law school graduates, because they know the law for the most part. It's kind of like riding a bike. It comes back to you. International attorney applicants from other states, they need to spend a little bit more time on that law. But that second step is crucial, and that's the strategy. So not knowing, for instance, the 6-7 different ways negligence comes up on an essay. How do you deal with vicarious liability? How do you deal with multiple special duty issues? That is crucial, because if you miss those, that's where you run into not passing the essays. So that strategy to the performance test is important. What does that look like? How much time should you be spending on every single step of that task memorandum, which they give you? So that strategy component is something we hone in a lot at CA Bar Style. And we find that when you put that into the formula, that's where clarity starts building. So that's a big one, which we can talk about a little, we'll talk about a little bit later. I touched on timing for the performance test. I'm not going to get, again, too much into that, but the PT is only 90 minutes. Sometimes, I mean, in the old school PT, we had 3 hours, but it was a lot more, it was voluminous. So you had a lot more case law, statutory law, facts from a mock file that's like your client's facts, right? Or opposing side's facts. And in that scenario, you're having to sift through law and connect it to facts and relevant facts, and then write something. And it has to be presentable in a proper legal format in either tone. So that is really difficult for most when you're just doing practice. Oh, and this is a very important point too. I could talk about this for a long time. I'll really try and hone in on the main overarching things, right? Because everyone is kind of different. Some applicants are really good at memorizing and others are not. So this is not across the board, but this is on average the main factors in answer to your question that I see why applicants lose points. Because at the end of the day, it's all about getting your points. Now you need 1390 out of 2000 points, okay? So that is the requisite right now that has come up, that has gone down from the 1440, 50 points that were cut from COVID. The Supreme Court ordered that here, California Supreme Court. Confidence and anxiety issues. So that's a big one. First-time takers, and when I say first-time takers, I'm really talking about those just coming out of law school. So I'm not talking about international applicants. California gets a ton of applicants from all over the world that want to take the bar here. And especially if English is not their first language, they can have major confidence issues. I'm working with somebody right now. He was licensed in India and he does not really have very strong computer skills. So we have, that going on where he can still apply to take the exam in person and handwrite it, but they're not granting too many of those accommodations in person. So that will lead to anxiety issues. But the main demographic are repeaters, people that have taken the exam more than once. We do see that their anxiety builds at times. Sometimes it's general anxiety that they've always had. Sometimes it's just built in with the test. And so in my program, I do deal with that. Not everybody likes to deal with it. But I do have some life coaching skills at this point, and I do work with them through it, of course, within reason. I mean, if it's something that we have to, talk about and maybe look at other options to work within it, then, it can get to that point. For the most part, once applicants are on a good strategic schedule and they start doing good preparation and it starts connecting for them, it does take time. It is a process. But once that happens, the confidence does build. So it's always important. And I know the question is what are the factors that leads to these low passage rates? But I wouldn't properly be answering the question if I didn't also say that, yes, these are not great things. And there's things you want to be aware of. Okay. But there's avenues to work on them. There's areas to resolve them. So, and ways to make sure that an applicant knows how to work through the test stress and anxiety. And the key thing is for repeaters, you don't want to bring what happened in the last test into the next preparation. So I work with them closely on getting that behind them as best as possible, right? And really making them confident again to get back up on the horse and get it done, so they don't have to be that hamster on a wheel constantly taking it over and over. Last factor that I think is very important is not giving yourself enough time to prepare. Most courses are 2 months before the bar. You can never cram for the California bar exam. There is a misconception that goes back to that independent study, or there's so many apps nowadays, and some of them are great and some of them are not, but cramming 2 months, you have to know yourself. Are you a working applicant? Are you a mom or a dad? I mean, I get it all, and everyone has a story, right? So give yourself enough time. I recommend at least 4 to 6 months minimum before the exam you're going to take to prepare.
And would that be coming straight out of law school? Do you find most applicants taking it right after law school? Is that
most applicants take it right after law school for a first time. If they do not pass,
Yeah.
It varies. So applicants either will take time off, they may take a bar or two off. I've seen applicants that go have an entire career and come back 20 years later. So it really runs the gamut. I'd say on average, and this is not a firm number, but based on my experience, I'd say most applicants take about 2 to 3 times to pass the exam.
Wow.
I have worked with all the way up to a 23-time taker though. So that's not the norm for people that will start getting with. That is
That's
not
dedication.
the norm.
That is dedication, right?
Major, and we got it done. And she was getting very close. So we have yo-yo bar takers, and they go up and then they come down. And it's because they're just doing the same things over again. They're not really having a good tutor look at it, or a company saying, this is what you're doing wrong. You need to stop doing this. And then they go, oh, well, I'll do it this time, but they don't change anything in their prep, which leads to the same result. So, yeah.
It speaks, excuse me, very highly of taking your time to properly plan your attack and your strategy. All right. So another contributing factor that you didn't mention was the fact that California is such a large candidate pool. So how does that actually drag down the pass rate?
Good question. We have, as I touched on before, applicants from all over the world that want to come here. And unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately, but they come here really zealous to practice law without realizing they can't cram 2 months before. Right. Commercial bar review does not work. I'm not saying ever, but for the most part, for someone coming from China or from India or from Israel or the Middle East, and I get a lot from the Middle East, people come here and they want to be lawyers here, understandably so. People want to live in California. So when they come here, they take the bar, and it brings down the passage rate for a lot of it because they're not well prepared. Right? They're not well prepared. So the bigger the pool, right, and the combination of lack of preparation is going to bring it down. Now, I want to say that I have rarely ever met anyone, no matter what background they have, that cannot prepare well and pass this exam. Okay. It just has to be good preparation. So, is that a major factor? Applicants coming from different states that don't know California law, different countries that need to know all the law for the most part, right? Yes, of course, that's going to bring down the passage rate because they're not preparing well. So I just want to clarify that. It's not because they're international applicants. It's because they just need some more time to prepare, and they need to know what that preparation looks like.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, now let's try to put a positive spin on things. What's good about the California bar being different? Is there any? Is there something examinees can consider to be a silver lining to an exam that has the 7th highest passing score in the nation?
Well, I think that I will tell you what I tell my applicants.
Okay.
If you have an opportunity to achieve your goals in arguably one of the best states in the country, then that is a blessing in itself, right? So I am always weary of, and I get a lot of inquiries, probably over 1,000 per year, where applicants will say, why is the bar so hard? Very in line with the questioning today. Am I going to be able to do it, right? And so I don't want people to be scared to come here, or applicants to be scared or weary of taking the exam or achieving their goal. Repeaters get that a lot too, right? They get kind of knocked down. They don't feel like they can get back up. Lawyers in general, or applicants that want to be attorneys, or applicants especially from other states come here, and we are kind of type A, right? We like things a certain way. So when we don't end up passing the test, it can be a real knockdown. So I would say, for a positive note, you have the opportunity to come here. If you prepare well, you can practice here. There is a ton of opportunity for lawyers in this state. And so the motivation is, why did you want to do this in the first place? Use that, find a good preparation, find a good coach, someone that will lead you, and make it as much as possible an enjoyable experience. Right. I also think that on a positive note, the essays and performance tests do test, for the most part, one's ability to be analytical, to spot issues, and to be, I don't want to say to necessarily be 100% ready to practice law, because you'll never be. You're always learning. The second an attorney thinks they don't have to learn anymore, it's never a good thing, in my opinion. There's always room for growth, but there is a standard here that I do think works. And whatever they end up doing with the Blue Ribbon Commission, I will support. But there is something to be said about having to answer a question, because when you know, in a time setting, like an essay, when you have a client that comes into your office, they're going to come in, they're going to bring you everything in the kitchen sink, every single file. I mean, they're probably going to bring you their birth certificate, okay? And not in relation to the case. And you're going to say, within a very short period of time, because it's not like we have too much time to sit with incoming clients, this is your case. This is what I can do for you. And so when you give a factual pattern, when you give a fact pattern to applicants, I think they do have enough time for the most part. They can tweak, you know, some things, this committee that's been set up. But I do think that whatever they come up with is going to be even more in line with what an entry-level attorney has to do. So I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, and you get to practice in California, like I said. I mean, you can have an office on the beach. I want that.
That should be the ultimate motivation, like a picture of Malibu, like above your desk, and just be like, I could have an office there. Okay, so now considering the uniqueness of the California bar, what should examinees be doing throughout their prep to ensure that they're ready to take on this marathon exam?
So applicants that are in their last year of law school, I'll focus on a point where applicants should start thinking about the bar in their last year of law school, for sure. Regardless though, even if you're a repeater, you're coming from another state, you're an attorney applicant, international applicant, start early. Like I said, start early with a schedule. Focus on the law first. Don't try and take on too much at once. So don't do tons of practice. And by the way, your practice will not be efficient if you do not know the law. So you've got to build that foundation. In an ideal world, I'd say study at least 3 to 6 months of the requisite law, 13 subjects, and then go into the next steps. We have amazing essay approaches, cabaressayapproach.com. Law students use these a lot all over the country. And those are how to write for every single area of law. A lot is tested on that uniform bar exam. So you can get started on something like that, whether it's CA bar style stuff or something else that you have connected with. You want to get started on some strategy, but for the most part, it should be focused on the law. Now, you're not memorizing at that early stage. I want to be clear on that. It's more understanding the law, connecting with it, being able to have a conversation about it. Okay. A main thing also is trust your gut. A lot of applicants get pressured into commercial bar review. Those are really backed by a lot of law schools, and they don't look at their options. Look at your options. Look to see what really is going to work for you. Do you need something more personal? Do you need someone who's going to track your work progress, who's going to be there for you and coach you? Or do you feel like you work better in not that type of setting? So, look at your options. A lot of applicants will call me in the midst of another bar review and say, please save me. But by then, because I don't believe in cramming, it might be too late for that bar. Yeah. A few other things I'll say is make sure that when you're doing practice, you get really good feedback on the practice, especially for the written component. It shouldn't be cookie cutter. It should be thorough. You should know by the time you've read the feedback, what you've done wrong, where you've missed points, and how to improve. A couple of other things is make sure you don't have too much on your plate going into bar prep. This is a big one. I get a lot of working moms and dads and applicants that have a lot of different responsibilities. Maybe they're running a business. A lot of people, I even get doctors that want to take the California bar and they want to like dual licensing. Yeah, a lot of people want to take this bar. And so I would say it's got to be realistic. I never am a proponent of taking a bar just to take it, because once, especially if you're a first time taker, once you become that repeater, that's where the confidence and that domino effect, of course, you can always still prepare well and pass, but why risk it? Put it, at the first time, especially if you're coming right out of law school, be strategic, find the right course for you, Be methodical, take your time with the law before you go into practice, and make sure you start clearing your schedule definitely the 2 to 3 months before the actual bar. If you're going to be working, if you're working with a tutor, the tutor should help you on how you're going to manage that. How are you going to manage working and studying for arguably the hardest bar in the country, right? So it's got to be strategic. I think I really said that word a lot today. And all these factors have to align. Now, you don't have to be perfect. So there does have to be an avoidance of this need, again, that type A personality, right? Where you say, I have to have it all down. I need to be perfect. There's no 100%. You're shooting for about a 70%. 65 is the overall passage, but about a 75% by the time you get into the bar. Last, be patient. Be patient with yourself. Remember that it is a process. If you do a set of multiple choice, the first 4 sets in that subject may be at a 50%, a 55%. You work through in the right strategy and methodology to the prep, and you will get it up. So perseverance is key during the California bar prep, or any bar prep really, but especially here in California. You want to make sure that you take your time, you don't rush it, and that you give yourself enough time to really connect with the material. Yeah. So that would be the overall things that I would be looking out for.
All right. What mistakes do you want people to try to avoid as they prepare for this exam?
They should just enroll in CA Bar Style.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. Well, I can't take, I don't know how many viewers are going to watch this. I only take about 130 students a year. So I would love to have you, but it was just being funny. I said this already. I just have 3 points here. If the prep isn't working, trust that. Don't take a bar just to take it. It never feels good not to pass, even if you think that, I'll just take it and I'll be fine. I know I didn't pass. It still won't feel good. Distractions, those are important. I talked about clearing your schedule already. Minimize your distractions. I call them minor versus major. Minor is a cold, right? Get over the cold, hopefully quickly. Major could be a wedding, even though a wedding is a very happy thing for most. A wedding could be amazing. I've had many people try and plan a wedding during bar prep. It never works well. It's a very stressful event, moving, right? And I've seen it all. Unfortunately, I've seen divorce, I've seen death. The world keeps turning. So if that distraction happens, don't push it. Postpone the bar till you're ready and your head is clear. But if it's a minor distraction, you can keep going. You just have to know how to pivot, okay? Self-care, this is a big one. So a lot of applicants, you're sitting in a chair a lot, especially now, you're sitting in front of a computer. Make sure you take care of yourself. I'm not here to tell anyone how to live their life, but I do guide my students. So I do recommend to my students that they exercise during the bar, that they try and eat healthy. This is going into a 2-day rigorous test. So stamina building does not happen if you're not good to yourself, and especially take breaks. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're not having a good day, we all have bad days. It's okay, and especially during bar prep, it's completely normal. Take a break. Take a full day off, take a half day off, and then the next day you'll feel really good. I had a student once, I'll never forget, she called me about a week before the test, and her boyfriend had just broken up with her.
What a bastard.
I mean, right? And couldn't he have just given her 2 weeks?
Yeah.
In any event, she said, what am I going to do? They were together a long time. I said, listen, tomorrow, go get your nails done, go get a massage, take the day. She goes, but I'm in the middle of memorizing. How am I going to? So just take the day and get back on it the next day. Okay, she listened to me. Not everyone listens, but she did. And she passed the exam. She did it.
Fabulous.
So that's the thing. Like, it's not all, that's that strategy, right? That's the golden word for today. Yeah. That is part of the entire circle, right? It's not just one thing. So be good to yourself and definitely execute some form of self-care during the entire process.
And this is, I mean, I say this often in these videos, it's like you cannot shelve your biological and emotional needs, psychological needs during this time. If anything, you should be investing even more in your health and well-being, because it is an incredible marathon and there's so much stress that you want your brain and your body and your your emotional well-being to operate at its optimum during this time.
100%.
Well, you touched on how you might act as a therapist to some of your students. And on the subject of CA bar style, tell us how you help all law students, including repeat takers and international applicants, prepare for and pass the California bar exam.
Thank you for that question. I don't get asked that too often. And it's something that I really had to think about because there are a lot of bar reviews out there. And I think that the preparation in some are okay, but it all starts with the baseline prep, right? So I can definitely stand by the materials that we provide, the essay feedback, the strategy and approach. I mean, we have over 50 essay approaches. That is really like nothing else on the market. A lot of the approaches on the market are very cookie cutter in the sense that they're just a checklist, right? My approaches are based on 25 years of the California bar exam essays, and they really haven't changed that much. It's the same fact patterns over and over again. Now they may change in the upcoming years, but for now in the upcoming bars, they're very relevant. And so they walk applicants through how to write for every single different call of question, which is the prompt for the essays, the approach for the performance test, right? Not just giving applicants practice. Anyone can really say, oh, just write this, but how to actually attack the performance test. What is the standard? So that methodology is key. So the baseline prep is fantastic. And of course, it varies throughout programs and the model is different, but the model that we utilize is law, but very focused law, not overwhelming. Of course, everything they need to know, right? But not in a sense of just reading outlines all day long. I want them to get out of the law for the most part after they've connected with it, and then go to that approach and say, it's kind of elevating the law and saying, okay, now how does this get tested? How am I going to attack a crossover question, which means you could have 2 or 3 different categories of law cross over. Professional responsibility, which is ethics, crosses over with corporations a lot, for instance. How do I attack an area like that, which can be kind of overwhelming for a lot of applicants? Where do I get my points? So a lot of strategy involved that I teach that is a very, very important step. A lot of courses don't focus on it. So by the time, especially repeaters get to me, they don't know where they're losing points. Right. Once they start that strategy and approach, they go, oh, now I get it. I understand what this standard was, right? Yeah. And some applicants are able to figure out the game, I call it a game, on their own, but a lot don't. And so, they need me and I walk them through that. Now, after the baseline prep, which is really thorough and stellar, okay, we elevate it to that next level. So baseline can be the law and the practice and the approach, and then there's a personal component to it. So the personal component is key because you can be in a course, you can be doing great prep, and that work product can be submitted. The graders give you feedback on the writing, but you still may not know if you're on the right track. And that's where I come in, and I don't delegate the tutoring. Over the years, I have had a lot of applicants, make sure that I'm the only tutor because they want to work with me, and I'm very fortunate for that. And I feel very blessed to have, survived this long and still been in the business, but it's because I passed so many applicants and, we work very closely together. I get to know their stories. Yeah. And I will say that every single applicant has a story and I care deeply about that story. Mm-hmm. So some people don't share with me as much as others, but most do. And I can relate most of the time. But sometimes, whatever it is, we work through it. So I get pregnant applicants that are taking the exam and they want to know, how am I going to navigate this? I get applicants that need accommodations. I get applicants that are working. And so whatever that story is, I take a look at it and say, okay, how are we going to factor what's going on into the bar prep? Because a lot of times we can't separate it, right? So again, like I said before, I have not really met an applicant that cannot prepare well and do this. And so the baseline prep combined with that personal assessment, excuse me, I didn't mention this before, but that second step of assessment. Yeah. Are you on that right track? Is it working for you? And if not, what do you need to do to improve? So it's not just, pointing out, which is huge, because especially repeaters, A lot of times they have no idea. They've taken 3, 4, 5 different bar courses. By the time they hit me, no one has looked at their previous exam. No one has sat with them and said, this is what you're doing wrong. This is where you're losing points. So that is really important. That happens in the first session once I have that work product to look at and assess. And then I give them the tools to improve. And we keep on the tutoring to make sure that that is gelling, that by the time they go into the test, they are ready to go. So it is a process, okay? But back to knowing about their story, that's where coaching comes in. So coaching is a little bit different than tutoring. Coaching can be anything from a pep talk to, okay, you are a working parent. How are you going to navigate 40 hours of work per week with studying for the bar, with having 3 kids at home? I mean, I have helped spouses. I had the most amazing couple once, the Hoppers. I'll never forget them. And I've had a lot of couples. So if you're watching this, I love you all. Okay. And I've had a lot of best friends come together, but both partners in busy law firms back east, 3 kids, no help. They would take turns after work studying, and they both passed the exam. So that's where that story gets factored in, right? Because they were calling me a lot saying, well, you know, we don't have help. So can you help us navigate the structure of what time management would look like here, right? Because time management is some people are great at it, and then others do need some help. And I do work with them through that. So CA Bar Style not only has, you know, in a nutshell, it not only has wonderful preparation. All I do is the California bar exam. I don't do any other state. I know this exam like the back of my hand for California and the requisite standard here. But we elevate it with that personalized attention. And a lot of courses say I'm a personal tutor. I do personal, coaching. But what does that really mean, right? It's such a loaded word, personal. And sometimes it almost sounds gimmicky, right? It's like, I'm a personal tutor, but at the end of the day, it's someone who is going to care about your personal journey and not only knows in terms of the prep, what it needs to look like, right? And if you're on that track, but also with whatever else you have going on, because the world keeps turning and applicants do have things that come up, how are we going to pivot through that? And how are we going to navigate through that? So all the factors, any factor that is needed to be covered during preparation is covered at CA Bar Style. And I do my best with my staff and I. It's not just me. I have a team of over about 15, 16 people, from graders to I have to give a shout out to my office manager, Richard Morales. He's amazing. He's been with me 6 years, and he is like a personal liaison to the students for tech support and administrative support. But whatever it is, there's a lot of heart in the company, and we care. And so that is probably the main factor that will set me apart from anybody else. So thank you for that question.
Well, there you have it. The best advice for taking on the California bar exam, straight from attorney Shoshana Karpeles' mouth. And if you need high caliber firepower in your corner as you prepare for this challenge, I really recommend you check out CA Bar Style for their excellent tutoring packages, support, and guidance. Details provided below. If you're in law school or preparing to take the bar exam, you should really get Brainscape certified MBE flashcards in your corner. This collection contains over 2,600 adaptive flashcards that will drill you on the key concepts you'll probably find in big bar review courses like Barbary or Themis, but condensed down to a super efficient flashcard format that helps you study more efficiently with spaced repetition. And whether you're in law school, just trying to keep your head above water, or preparing to take the biggest exam of your life, these can be a real lifeline to helping you get the content down pat. Brainscape also has a law academy packed with helpful guides on topics you'll no doubt be familiar with, like dealing with bar exam stress, studying for the bar, acing law firm interviews, and making key decisions like picking a bar review course and a law specialty as you embark upon your career. So grab these tools, study hard, and rise to your challenge.